Hello, everybody, and welcome to another stupendous episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be reviewing Fantasy Island, a movie that I'm fairly certain does not actually understand what fantasies are, but we're going to get to that here really soon. First up, joining me from Chicago, Illinois, please welcome Joe.
Hello, you princes of Maine.
Next up, from Indiana, please welcome Casey.
Hello.
And like all the best wrestlers from parts unknown, please welcome Mr. John Schnars.
Hello, Eric.
We are here tonight, like I said, to review Fantasy Island. This is take number 2. I assure you, there were many good jokes in take number 1, but here we are.
This version sucks.
We workshopped them and we tightened them up a little. That's all I would say.
We definitely talked about John has David Spade's hair from the 90s.
Yeah,
That was one
I
thing.
can't make fun of your hat anymore, John. So let's just.
Next week,
I'm glad we got it out of our system.
Next week, I'm going to need you to try to comb your hair like David Spade and Tommy Boy. If we can make that happen, that would be great.
I'll do some research and come back to you.
Thank you. It's another quarantine edition of Bloody Good Horror, folks. Here we go. What are we doing in quarantine but drinking? Joe, please tell us what we are drinking this week.
Beer guts.
Fantasy Island. It's a fun little movie about based on that TV show that we all loved as kids. But some folks traveling into an island and doing God knows what they're doing. Trapped. Some say would say trapped or stranded, but here we are. John, do you know what my favorite video featuring 2 trapped people is?
I remember because you answered the question last time we recorded. I believe it's a Huey Lewis song. I don't remember which one.
Stuck with you.
Remember
that one?
No, because I'm not old.
Yes, it's true. I'm so happy to be stuck with you.
Wow.
You don't remember this?
No.
Huey Lewis is a
that's
treasure. You should take those dirty words out of your mouth, Eric.
Yeah.
Listen,
sports.
That's not one of the breakthrough hits.
I know I know a few of his songs, but he's definitely of an era of MTV that I was probably just like slightly too young for.
Fine. But anyway, in honor of that fine gentleman, I picked a beer from the fine folks at Eagle Park Brewing Company up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where right now you can drink at a bar and do whatever the hell you want because it's fair game up there. The name of this beer is Huey Lewis and the Booze.
It's a real stretch. I'm not gonna lie. I respect the effort, but it's a stretch.
You know what the problem is? I had other beers that I wanted to pick, but I've used them before, so I consciously I've done repeats before, but knowing that I was gonna do one, I didn't feel right. If you see the video, John, I think you'll get it. Anyway, Huey Lewis and the Booze. It's a brown ale, which I haven't. It's been a while since I've done a brown ale. This one, they use oatmeal in the brewing process. Gives it a silky, almost creamy mouthfeel, John, which I know is exactly what you're looking for.
Ew.
It's also made with bourbon barrel-aged coffee beans. So a lot going on there. Sounds a little funky. Super good. Everything that Eagle Park puts out is very, very good. They don't distribute super far, so you're going to have to travel to Milwaukee to pick this up. But again, if you're jonesing for some unsocial distancing, you can go there and open mouth kiss people right in a bar right now. They don't give a fuck.
It's a full-on bacchanalia.
Isn't that going to be one of the funniest relics from this that we'll just keep in our brains? Like, people used to go out to bars and stick their tongues in strangers' mouths just for fun.
I plan to get back to that, just to be clear.
That's the first thing.
Literally, I was watching some TV show. I was watching Ozark with my wife last night, and this woman walks into a convenience store and places both hands palms down on the counter of this convenience store, and I was like, I had a revulsion just go through me.
It is weird to see, yeah, like in shows now.
Don't touch stuff.
Where the hell was I? Eagle Park. Everything they put out is great. They don't distribute very far, so you're gonna have to take a trip up there. But trust me, it's definitely worth it. Their website, eagleparkbrewing.com. This one comes in at about 6.6% alcohol, so just fucking get 8 or 9 at this point. Like, what else are you doing with your time? And enjoy yourself. But yeah, again, super great. Everything they do is great. So I definitely recommend them. And yeah, I think that'll do it.
Nice, thank you for that, Joe. I am drinking the saddest of gluten-free beers tonight. That is Redbridge, which is owned by Budweiser.
Yeah,
but
they're one, if I remember right, like they set up Redbridge as like when craft beer was starting to get big.
like a shell company.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, because I remember I discovered it because I was down in Disney and we were at a restaurant, and like Disney usually has like Bud Light, and they had Redbridge IPA. And I'm like, oh, let me try this out. And it tastes like shit.
Was it gluten-free?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, okay. I mean, if you like, here's why it makes me sad. Weirdly enough, this is the best gluten-free beer. There's like a ton of like artisanal, like gluten-free breweries, and everything they make is dog shit. I have never had a single good gluten-free beer except for this piece of shit.
I thought you liked, wasn't there Omission or something you were all about for a little while?
Yeah, okay, Omission is pretty good, but the thing is, like, they brew it with wheat, and so actually, like, a lot of people are still going to have issues with it. Like, this is true.
Gotcha.
This is actually, like, there's no wheat in this. It's a whole thing. It's not bad. It's drinkable. If a normal person who could drink regular beer had this, they'd vomit immediately. But this is my life, so here we are.
Spit it into your face.
No, because my brother's like a big beer guy, and like I'll have something, he'll be like, "Oh yeah, I want to try it." I'm like, "You don't want to try it. You don't. You think you do, but you don't."
Yeah.
So here we are.
I've had a lot of ciders recently because we keep some ciders in the house.
Oh yeah.
When there's not beer around, cider is delicious.
No,
it's a solid go-to.
It's easier now because every place that does a lot of cider does dry ones, and so you can get some that are less like disgustingly sweet. Like when the only thing you could get was like Angry Orchard or whatever. You know, like everything was kind of dog shit. But
Sugar in a bottle.
yeah, basically, it's better now. Anyway, that's the gluten-free update for this week. It is time. Let us take a quick break and review Fantasy Island.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. Come to prime time. Main feature.
And we're back. You know what we now missed because of that partial episode we lost was talking about how excited our patron Matt is that we're reviewing this tonight.
Oh yeah, Mr. M. Root. He
Yes.
was pushing for us to see this in the theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, if
It's fan service. That's what it's individual fan service. That's what I consider this
if it's one thing
we
that
got time, everyone gets a staff pick.
if it's one thing that Matt loves, it's wildly mediocre movies. So here we are. Fantasy Island, Mr. Schnars, or should I say Spade. John, remember that scene at the end of Tommy Boy where he walks in front of the fan and like blows his thing back?
Oh, I do remember that.
I'd like to also recreate that next week if we can. A quick
That would
aside.
take some time.
John Schnars, please bring us the word of the day.
Eric, today's word, avidity.
Oh.
Avidity. Avidity. Avidity, and if I have any more of this beer, I'm not going to be able to say this. The word that is extreme eagerness or enthusiasm. Avidity. It comes to us from the Latin avidus, eager or greedy.
I think it's Alvidersdane.
Albiedersdane. Yeah, that's where it came from. Yeah, avidity. Not a very common word these days. If you look at the old word usage graph, which I love, it's an interesting feature. Very low. Very popular in the 18th century, 19th century. Low now. But yeah, avidity. You know, there's a lot of words we could use to describe this film. I was impressed with the avidity of the actors.
Yeah, they're going for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what?
For sure.
What do they got to lose?
Exactly.
How do you pick the word, John? Like, what's the process?
I think you know the answer to that.
It's. I think of a Huey Lewis in the new song. that relates to the film.
You see, Huey Lewis in the news, we're best known. That's my That's my American Psycho impression. That's all I have. But really, okay, John, thank you. Can you tell us about whose fault is this?
So I have not had a chance to research deeply into the production history because to me the most interesting question, and maybe listeners will have some feedback for us, and if you do, please send it to us. Who the hell optioned this, or who sort of paid for the rights to make this? So you mentioned, Eric, that this is a reboot of a 70s. I don't even think it was that popular of a show. I think it only ran for a couple of seasons.
No, I think it was pretty popular. You know, they had like
It
a
was
lot of
pretty
celebrity
popular.
guests and.
No,
Yeah,
well,
that
okay,
was
so
staple.
sorry, hold on. But my understanding is it only went for like 2 or 3 seasons. It was not like it wasn't like Dallas. Like it wasn't like 8, 9
Yeah, but
seasons where everyone was lining up.
Counterpoint, wasn't Gilligan's Island only like 2 or 3 seasons, and it's like I think you're
Do
right, but
not come after Gilligan's Island.
well, no,
is
but
all
my
I'll say.
point is I think it's on the same tier in that it was a short-lived show that sort of stayed in pop culture memory.
It
it had
definitely.
7 seasons, John. It
Huh?
ran for
Oh,
6
all right. So, all right. In any event,
So it was a normal,
listen,
successful show.
I was dead, or I was dead. I wasn't born when this show had been canceled. I'm pretty sure. So,
Are you going to tell me that the Love Boat sucked too?
Yeah. This was pretty much the Love Boat on an island.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like the model, again, my understanding, because I read a little bit about this, is they basically would bring in guests and they would try to get famous people from other shows, and it was a lot of like.
They didn't try, John. They did.
Oh yeah.
You got fucking Ricardo Montalban.
All
Yeah,
right.
you're gonna
fucking
show
come
up.
on, man.
Yeah, you're getting anybody. I mean, listen, I did not experience Fantasy Island in real time. They did try to reboot it in the late 90s, I believe, and that did not go well.
I do remember
it's-
I do remember there being at least one reboot. I wouldn't be
It's
surprised to
sort of
find out there was like 3.
Well, it's unclear why this film got made. But so, let's put that to the side. This is, as you mentioned, a Blumhouse film. It is directed by Jeff Wadlow, who directed for Blumhouse Truth or Dare.
Oh,
And
which-
so
which
I
we
did
didn't-
read an article.
We didn't do, but we had a
basically-
lot of calls to do because of how silly it looked.
Well, the article I read on Variety insinuated that Jeff Wadlow did a nice job with Truth or Dare, which was a very, very inexpensive film, and so they gave him this as sort of like a hey, like thanks, buddy. What to say about this movie? I mean, so the premise is that I believe 5 people arrive on Fantasy Island to have their fantasies explored or enacted for them by the island. Mr. Rourke is played by Michael Pena, I believe.
We gotta pull up this guy's IMDb at some point because I feel like he normally does comedic roles, right?
Yeah, he's a little funnier usually.
Yeah.
And he's kind of all over the map. Like End of Watch is like the movie that I always kind of associate him with. But yeah, he's Ant-Man. He's in one of the seasons of Narcos. But yeah, in any event,
Chips.
so
He was in Chips, John.
he wasn't Chips. But yeah, so Michael Pena is Mr. Rourke. Mr. Rourke is like the guy who runs the island, and that's from the original show. We get these 5 characters. Their names I'm not going to remember. Melanie, Gwen, Sloan, whatever. There's a lot of random ass people. They're here to have their fantasies happen in real life.
John, good luck naming the 45 people in this movie.
But no, I mean, so the premise is that you get there and the island creates your fantasy for you, and the only rule is that you get the rule as it explained by Mr. Rourke is you get one fantasy and you have to see your fantasy out to the end. So once it starts, like whatever happens, like you have to live with. And so these 5 people each start having their own 5 separate fantasies, and they pretty quickly go from sort of whatever fantastical to creepy to then outright crazy, or there's like action movie stuff going on. And so basically the film, what we come to learn is that all 5 of these characters, there is some interaction between their fantasies that we start to see, and
Twist.
they're part of a bigger story that the island is creating. So I don't know, we can work our way to spoiler, but that's the setup.
Yeah, this is true. Okay, Joe, what do you think?
Do we also want to include what our fantasy would be? Like, do we just want to go round table?
Right
Honestly,
now, it would, honest to God, just
Quiet.
be like, give me in a fucking quiet room for like a
I want to
couple of
hear
days.
nothing.
I
Ever.
mean, isn't that where you are, John?
No people,
Um,
no people,
it's
no
a-
children. Just, I don't care where I am. Put me in a white room with no
I
windows.
had a real roller coaster with this movie. I did watch the TV series a good amount as a kid, even though I was pretty young when even like when it went off the air. I'm sure I was watching it in reruns or something, but like definitely watched it. So when I first heard that they were making a movie out of it, I was kind of jazzed, and then I heard they were making it as a horror movie, and I was kind of confused. And then we saw the trailer, and I was even more confused. And then I started watching it, and I got more confused. But I don't. I think I ended up almost kind of really liking this. Like it's ridiculous and it's stupid. The like I think Eric mentioned, I don't know if he said it here, but he definitely said it over email. Like there's so much going on. Like there's 5 different plots in this thing, and there's one Gwen, Maggie Q. Her plot not enjoyable at all, but the rest of them, like I
Joe.
was super on board for.
Joe, I really like
And-
how casually you say Maggie Q, like we didn't have to explain to you who that was.
Well, yeah, well, I have the IMDb.
You're
in
like,
front
oh,
of me.
Maggie Q.
Good old Mags.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if she wasn't in this movie, like Oscar worthy potentially.
Stop it.
But like it was, I don't know, it was dumb, but it was also like a lot of fun. We have 2 brothers, who I thought like I could have watched the whole movie with just those 2 kind of goofing around like that. That was definitely the most enjoyable like sort of sequence that we got.
It's Jimmy Chang, and then the other guy. The only thing I knew him from is Party Down. Did you guys watch
So-
Party Down?
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
but he was Dick Casablancas.
not to
from
get
Veronica Mars.
not to get
Oh,
weird,
okay.
not to get weird here, but not weird, but he is in one episode of Breaking Bad for 2 scenes in season 2. I don't know if you guys are like me and have rewatched Breaking Bad 5,000 times.
I have not, but
In
go
season
ahead.
I haven't watched it once.
Season 2, Jesse gets kicked out of his house and he reconnects with an old band member. The band, not safe for work warning. His band's name is Twat Hammer. And
Yep,
it's the
yep.
guy, but now he's like sort of married and he has kids, and he's like he needs a place to stay, and the guy's like, yeah man, yeah, and they're like, we'll get the band back together, and the guy's wife comes home and she's like, can I talk to you in the other room? So yeah, but that's like the only thing I've ever seen him in, and as soon as I saw him I was like, it's that guy.
No, that guy cracked me up. He was my favorite one in this one. Sorry to jump in, but
Yeah,
because he was
he's
Dick
pretty good.
Casablancas and Veronica, he has made an entire career out of that character.
Yeah.
He
He's
was
been
in
in
the
a
Friday
ton
the
of
13th
shit.
reboot, apparently.
He,
too.
yeah, he was in that. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been in a ton of shit, and he's always drunk surfer guy.
So anyway, like I don't know. At the end of the day, like I found this pretty enjoyable. It definitely was too long. Like we could have cut like a half an hour out of it. Like at one point, I looked at the clock and they were just kind of getting to the explanation as to like what was going on, and like
Yeah.
an hour and 15 had already gone by.
Dude,
But
It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah,
it's like
truly
goofy, dumb
crazy.
fun.
Casey.
Yeah.
Yeah, so oddly enough, I'm going to end up probably there right in the camp with Joe, because this movie was terrible, made no sense, way too much going on, and it was too long. But by God, by the end of it, I had fun. I was pretty entertained by the end of it. It was completely stupid and not a good movie, but it's put together fairly well, and it looks good as far as the way they put everything together. I got some laughs out of the bits that were going on in the fantasies and whatnot. Just like Joe said, Maggie Q's story was meh, whatever, but the
It's
rest
just
of them
a
were pretty
downer. Like,
funny.
the whole thing was a
Yeah.
downer.
Well, yeah,
Like,
it's
they
just
all-
the rest of it's fun, and she's just
Yeah.
like, oh god, why?
And hers was way
I don't-
over
well,
emotional
whatever,
compared
the,
to
like,
rest, so.
the person being tortured in high school. I don't. Whatever. It was fine.
We can get to
But
it.
that-
I'm pretty sure she deserved it, but we can talk about that after.
100%.
Yeah, no, she was like the least likable character in this movie, which made it really hilarious when they were trying to get you to like get behind her at the end. And I'm like, no, dude, just kill her. It's fine. John, what'd you think?
I am sensitive to the opinion that Casey and Joe are putting forward here.
And Eric.
I just could not get all the way there. Like it's
No,
not.
like, listen, you have to be in the right place to catch a movie like this in the way that I think the rest of us did.
Well, no, like
Yeah.
so Jimmy Chang, who the only thing I know him from is Silicon Valley, and he's like my favorite part of Silicon Valley. And then that guy who plays his brother, like it's such an absurd setup that like I loved every minute of what they were doing.
It's pretty good.
But the rest of the movie, it's so uneven. Like, like the Maggie Q thing is it's not that it's not even that it's not funny. It's like aggressively sort of emotional and like they're trying to be heart-wrenching.
It's emotionally manipulative is what I would call
Yeah,
it.
but in like 5-minute segments,
But in a
that are
cheap way.
punctuated. Yeah, but then it's punctuated by like really crazy shit happen.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
should mention Michael Rooker is in this. Is that I think
Yes.
it's
Oh my God, yeah.
like it's just like an insane cameo that honestly doesn't make a ton of sense. But you're like,
Now that you
"All
mention
right,
it, I don't know what he was doing there.
He
he
said
was a
that
PI.
yeah, he claimed he was a private eye sent there by a client to like find out what's happening on the like how they do. Oh, it's like Jurassic Park style. He's supposed to find
I
out
was
what
paying
the
attention to this whole movie. I did not know that.
Yeah,
he-
I didn't get that either, and I watched it twice.
he gives like a little soliloquy where he says that the client wants to know how they do what they do so that they can basically like steal the trade secrets more. It's like it's Jurassic. It's a Nedry in Jurassic Park basically.
Why is he so
My-
disheveled though?
Because
how
he's-
long has he
because
been
he's-
there?
It's like he's been there for a month.
Yeah.
Because he
He's been
was
there for, like, 6
stranded,
days.
Joe.
I'm assuming he
No.
hasn't made since he left The Walking Dead, and they just found him and threw him in the background.
All right.
No,
But
I
really quick,
yeah.
If the island is like all powerful, like it would know that Michael Rucker was there and it would fucking deal with him. You know, like whatever.
Hey,
Hold on. If I have to pick one of
Spoiler.
the characters that I disliked the most, it's the cop whose dad was in the army and he's like,
oh my God.
that plot line was fucking awful.
yeah.
It was bad. So
Again-
I don't want to say this in like any sort of offensive way, like most respect to our troops, but like
yeah, support the troops, obviously.
my fantasy would not be to fucking run around and get shot at.
Yeah.
Like, let's be clear.
Well, Joe,
Two
you
ladies.
know that's the thing though. It's like be careful what you wish for, Joe. Monkey's paw, all that. This movie is, I would say, all-time historical bloody good horror review bad script. Like all-time bad
Nonsense.
screenwriting, but it's nonsense screenwriting in the funniest way humanly possible. So like they get to this island, and for starters, it's like watching 5 different movies because the characters all have completely separate fantasies. So after they meet up, they split off and they each go into their own movie with other characters, other stories that are not related at all until an hour in. And so, and every movie, to like kind of you guys have been talking about, they're all so different. It's like the Party Boys, which is pretty funny. It's like Maggie Q and her like, dime store, like, emotionally like abusive story. And like, what are the other ones? It's the army guy, and then the Lucy Hale, who is from she was in Pretty Little Liars. And
I
She was
had
in
no
Truth or
idea
Dare
who she
also.
was.
So I knew this because
Oh,
my
okay.
wife was obsessed with that show, Pretty Little Liars, for
Yeah.
like a season. But then this is really random, and I was telling this to Joe, but so every year on Dick Clark's Rockin' New Year's Eve, they do like remotes around the country with like music acts, and she hosts the one in New Orleans for like the last 2 or 3 years. I have no idea why. I don't know. I was honestly surprised to see her in this because I'm like, I didn't know she was acting anymore. I thought she was just doing something else. But so
I thought you was just doing this New Year's Eve thing once a year.
there is 40 actors in this movie at least that you're supposed to understand who they are. 5 different storylines. The proprietor is like almost winkingly kind of making jokes in the beginning, and like first of all, the first line of this movie is somebody runs up on the island and looks up in the sky and goes, "The plane," and I'm like, oh my
Well,
god, this is what
that's
we're
like
doing.
a reference apparently.
No, I
to-
understand.
show.
Yeah, I understand, but like that kind of puts you, because whatever, just from a
I didn't know that, by the way. I had to like look that
no,
up
that was the whole
afterwards.
thing. Is
Oh,
Hervé
That's how
Villachet,
every episode starts.
he'd go
The
to plane,
boss,
to
the
plane.
plane.
But like, but that's the point of the other point of like that is the pop culture staple kind of aspect of this movie. But how I envision this gets made is like some executive orders up a list of the properties they could own or use if they wanted to, and they just look at it and go like, whatever. Here you go, Blumhouse,
But
$10.
that's
Enjoy.
But that's what's weird because Blumhouse isn't usually in that business. Like they're not doing. Like
That's not true.
I mean, my guess
That's-
is they didn't. Well, hold
They've
on.
done
They
a
didn't pay
couple
lot-
remakes.
But they didn't pay a lot of money for this. Is the
Yeah,
only thing I would have-
who wants it? That's my
Yeah,
point.
Yeah.
So the movie is already convoluted, and then they start bringing these characters together and sort of weaving this really just hilariously dumb way to kind of get them all in the same story. There are legit, like I would say there's like 5 minor plot twists and at least 3 major Shyamalan-esque plot twists in this movie.
Yeah.
By the time it's over, you don't even know what is happening.
No,
And
you don't
the
care, is
final,
my thing.
we're gonna get into it because this movie is bad and I need to talk about this. And like the final twist negates the entire rest of the movie. The final twist negates most of it, and then the final twist just blows everything out of the water. Like it makes no sense. So this movie's terrible, but it's really funny. It's like it's kind of like a really dopey dog that like chases its own tail. Like it's stupid, but you kind of watch it and you're like, oh, that's cute. He thinks he's gonna catch his tail, you know? Like
Oh, you walked into the wall.
it's
again.
it's like peak like too many cooks in the screenwriting kitchen. It's like so clearly written all over it. It's really silly. There's a lot of silly performances, and I think I do think without the 2 brother characters, it's probably way less watchable. They make the first act pretty watchable, I think, in a lot of ways.
It's you know, I was joking a little bit with the word of the day, but I was impressed that everybody was essentially like playing along in a script that just feels so ridiculous. You know, the fact that these actors are able to get there speaks to a level of professionalism that I very much respect.
Well, yeah,
So-
like they're selling the cheesiest emotional writing, and they're just selling the crap out of it.
Yeah. Very quick correction. It's Jimmy O Yang. I think I said Jimmy O Chang, and I feel bad about it, so I'm just getting that out there.
John-
Because he's my favorite part of the movie.
But John, you bring up a good point, like about how the army story in particular. And so the story is that this guy, help me with this, like this guy's
So-
father died in a like covert mission when he was a kid, and
when he was 9, yeah.
the kid grew up. His dad was his hero. He found out that his dad threw himself on a grenade to save his squad mates or whatever. So his fantasy is to be a soldier like his dad. So they throw him right into it, and like
Because he couldn't be a police officer, or he couldn't be a soldier because he had physical limitations, but he could be a police officer. That's what was weird.
the thing
Well,
about
that's
these,
fine. I mean-
but the thing about these fantasies though is that they're very Westworld-esque in that the people who are participating in these fantasies with you don't know. Like it's unclear to me if they're like zombies or hallucinations or what, but they don't act like you can't say to them like you're an actor. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't make sense. And
There's
so,
no consistency to how anyone
exactly.
is
But
acting or
like
being.
so they're treating him like he's a soldier, and he runs into basically his dad in the fantasy past, and like this, but to the point of this being 5 different movies, right? There's movies like this. There's that Dennis. You ever see that Dennis Quaid movie Frequency where he's
Great.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Love freak.
But so
Frequencies are really
the,
good.
the pivotal moment in Frequency, right, is like he doesn't believe that he's actually talking to his, what is it? It's his son in the future or whatever. But like, so you spend 75 minutes in the movie bringing that character around to a logical place where you can then buy them going like, okay, I don't know how else you must be my son, right? But when you have 5 different stories you're trying to tell here, that gets distilled down to there's a scene where he says like 3 facts that only he could know, and then the next time we see them he goes, I don't know how it's possible, but I believe it. And you're just like, what?
Yeah.
Son?
But that's kind of an example. That's kind of an example how just like everything is so surface level because it has to be, because there's 9,000 plot threads they're trying to tie
Yeah.
together.
Well, and
Well,
in
I
that
love it.
specific sequence, like the dad also is like, "Fuck it, I'll kill all of the people that I'm like
Yeah.
on this tour with just to save my son and get home alive." Like,
Fuck
it's
it, I
just-
quit and
yeah.
go home.
It's very inconsistent.
I love that the like the clues when he asked his son for clues to if it was really his son and they were stupid, like, what's my nickname? Buster.
I did like, really enjoy the party boy banter between the 2 brothers.
It was great. Like I could have
Yeah.
watched. I would like to see a whole movie of that, and like not to spoil it or something, but like they kind of imply that there is going to be a sequel featuring what's his name, Jen?
Wait, really?
Jimmy O.
Oh, I
Yang.
didn't. I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't
Yeah.
really read it like that, but I suppose you could still do a sequel. Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
that
you
was
100% can.
No, but doesn't
Yeah.
he? Hasn't he lost? Or does the island
Well,
just have this power
Yeah.
always?
Well, the whole, and again, I guess spoiler alert, like they're pretty much implying that like
This
they're
is a
gonna
prequel.
this is a prequel. They're gonna keep
Yeah.
doing this. Jimmy O Yang is
Oh,
gonna
because at the
play
end
Tattoo.
he says, "Oh,
Yeah.
tattoo." Oh,
So in Fantasy Island 2, Jimmy O Yang's gonna be the one at the beginning yelling, "The plane, the plane."
The plane, boss, the plane. Do you remember when he did the Dunkin' Donuts commercial?
yes,
And he was in the Dunkin' Donuts. He's like, the plane, boss, the plane.
I do.
The jelly, boss, the jelly.
Yeah, no, I do actually remember that. I mean, no, listen, that dude turned that role into like pop culture, cachet.
Oh yeah.
So, okay, so here's what develops at some point. Like, let's say at least 45 minutes in this movie.
No. Hold on, because this movie is long, so I want to be clear about the timeline.
I think
Joe
it's
hit it earlier.
4 hours
like,
long.
They explain to you that you think you're getting the full plot, like an hour into an hour and 45-minute film, and you're kind of like, what the fuck's going on with the last 45 minutes? And then Eric, you kind of hit on the fact that there are so many twists in the last 20 minutes. I watched the last 30 minutes about an hour and a half ago. It blew my mind. I thought I had seen the
it's
movie.
insane.
I hadn't seen any of the movie
John,
at that point.
And none of it holds up. Like, I know, duh, but like it gets worse because they actually negate their own shitty screenwriting at some point. But like,
Yeah.
so here's the first thing. We learned that O'Rourke, I can't say that word right now. I've been drinking. I'm sorry. With the rural juror, his wife died. I don't remember part of it, but somehow he discovered that he's on this island, and somehow he discovered that it has powers to make fantasies come true. There's a weird crystal egg thing in like the heart of the island in a cave that like does the magic fantasy shit. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
But the only way that so his fantasy was that his wife would still be alive. This is exhausting. Because I'm like trying to pull it out of my brain, but it's been a long week already. The only way this is possible is if he agrees to continue to bring people to the island and relive fantasies, because I guess the island has a stake in reliving people's fantasies.
How did he find this out, though? I was wondering.
But
Like, was there like a note somewhere?
His wife had
Yeah.
his wife had
Who's making
cancer
the
or
deal?
something, and so like he couldn't handle falling in love with her because then she just kept
No,
getting
she
cancer
keeps
and
coming-
dying.
No, she
No-
keeps coming back, and then she gets cancer and dies within like a day. So then instead, he couldn't tell her that she was his wife anymore. So then he starts telling her that she's his assistant, and so that's the
Right.
piece where she just shows up every day
Yeah.
as his assistant
So
and dies.
so that at like an hour in you think is like, oh, okay, this is the plot. Like this guy's motivation is that he's trying to keep this shell game going so that he can do whatever, so that he can keep his wife there.
But by
then-
the way, Rourke isn't even like a main character at that point. He's still
No.
like very much a secondary
No,
character.
this guy spends 5 minutes on screen the entire movie, and that gets even crazier when you get to the ending. Okay, so by the way, you know what I did really enjoy, actually, just like attention-wise, even though it's silly, is like the scene where Lucy Hale is like torturing this bully, and then she realizes the bully is real. Which, by the way, the scene in hindsight, we got to talk about it in a minute, but doesn't make any sense. But then like somehow she knew exactly what button would make the electric thing come up at the right
I think
moment
they
to
were
shock the guy.
blinking in order or something. That's what
This
I
is
assumed.
stupid. But the one scene in the movie where I actually thought the tension was really well executed is where she hits the button, and yeah, it's like Simon Says, where she hits the button, and it shows the video of the like her tormentor that she's from like high school that she's torturing has cheated on her husband, and when she hits a button, she live watches this video get posted to Facebook, and then there's surveillance video in the guy's home where
Why
he
were there multiple buttons?
where he
Why
starts
couldn't they
getting
just make
phone
one
calls. Right? Why couldn't it just be one button? You just hit over and over. That's actually a good point. That's a UI problem, Joe.
You gotta sell it, man.
It was
It's
like
pageantry.
Okay,
It's like an old school like control panel
It
too.
was huge. There
so
was so many buttons.
Lucy
When
Hale.
she presses a button, like 10 things happen, and she presses the next button, and one thing happens. It's just
So Lucy
One
Hale.
button's sole purpose is to like diffuse the guy who's in there to torture her. Like, why would there be a button to do that?
So she escapes, and she teams up sort of tentatively. She lies to the girl and says she was also trapped because the girl couldn't see her. That's when they meet up with Michael Rooker. They're on their own thing. eventually everybody comes around because we just got to keep moving here. What we discover is that they are all connected. And the way that they are all connected is that they were all involved somehow in this apartment fire where this guy died. So they're like, okay, somebody's trying to get revenge on us. So that's twist number 2, which is that they are not in their fantasies. They are part of
Yes.
someone else's fantasy.
Well, and they all start to realize that independently because they're bumping into
And they're not
each
all
other.
together.
Yeah, but they're bumping into each other's fantasies, and then realizing like, wait, this can't be my fantasy if this
Now-
other person's here.
Now, this is the first point at which they negate all of their storytelling, which is that if it's not actually their fantasy, why go through all this trouble? Just tell them they want a paid vacation. Done. Like,
Yeah.
why? It doesn't make any sense that you had to set up fantasies for everybody when it's not their fantasy.
That is, yes, strongly agree. I felt that way. Even so, there's
But then
there's
it's
like,
not
boring
the
movie though.
But
guys.
then it's not the TV show if you don't do that, though.
Sure.
If everybody doesn't have their own fantasy, it's not.
well,
the
but they
TV
could
show.
be confused about why they're on the island. Like,
We're like, why
because,
are we
yeah,
here?
this
I don't
is-
know.
I think the best version.
And
of
then,
this
and then
movie,
you
'cause
wouldn't have had to tell 5 different stories.
maybe I mentioned this over email. Like, but the best version of this movie is it's basically a more concise Lost. Like Lost, which I loved, made no fucking sense for 7 seasons, and I embraced every one of those 7 seasons. This made no sense for like an hour and a half, and like you could have gone, you could have tightened this up and actually like made it like a whatever. But yeah, there's a universe where everybody just wakes up and they're like, why am I on this island? And it's like, oh, we're in somebody, whatever. But yeah,
So that's twist number 1. Everybody gets together and they end up in like this weird hallucinatory cave where this whole cave scene is maybe the dumbest thing in a really dumb movie. Where random
well,
things
it's like
just
a
start.
soundstage. Like I just assumed this was like budget savings. Like it's super tight quarters.
We
You
can't
see
we can't
anything.
afford the island anymore.
No, yeah.
So now we get to the twist, which is that they are all in Lucy Hale's fantasy that she
Well, because they
had
thought
it-
it was the mom. They thought it was the mother of the guy who burned in.
so
the fire.
part of her story is true in that she was bullied and felt like she didn't have any worth, and she had found this guy and they went on a date together and she had felt like they made a connection and they had another date or something the night that he died, basically. Now, my problem with this is that we have a whole scene where Lucy Hale tortures the bully and then no one else is around to witness this, right? So she's not performing for
Yeah.
anybody. She tortures the bully and is shocked and terrified and surprised to find out that this is real torture, which
Yes.
doesn't make any sense because it's her like, why even set this whole thing up with her if this isn't even her fantasy?
Yeah, like she jumps and she records the whole thing. She like goes through all these steps.
It's
where you're
actually one of the
what the fuck?
biggest plot holes I think
Yeah.
of any movie we've ever reviewed on this show.
Yeah, I didn't
Well,
think
not
about it.
only-
That's a valid point though.
Because
But
I-
not only that, with that one, if the whole thing is we're certain to find out to this point, spoilers, that a lot of this is the supernatural fantasy egg on the island that's causing this stuff to happen. Why the hell did they kidnap her high school bully?
Yeah, no, well,
That's the
that
point.
was always my thing. Is like, why did the Sloane character actually need to be
You
there?
don't have
versus
to trick
be
her.
One of the ghost characters.
you don't have to trick her. She knows why she's there. That
But
doesn't
the
make
egg
any
could have
sense.
created her too, and it wouldn't have mattered one way or the other.
And like, I
Yeah.
guess you could argue like, oh, I mean, you couldn't argue this, but you could say you have to have her on the island as a participant to kind of fool the other people. But none of those other people are around when this whole
No,
scene
they're
is
not.
playing out.
Yeah.
Well, and because then it's just like she's getting all of her fantasies at once because she gets to punish her like bully person, but also
Right, but then
exact
she's
revenge.
surprised when it's real.
Well, and all right, so let's put a pin in this for 1 second because the other thing that's all the most absurd part of the entire thing, and they sort of touch on this in the film, is the fact that this was a guy she had met that day. So she's basically exacting revenge on 4 or 5 people that she's, that she feels like have wronged her because they were involved in the killing of a person that she literally had one coffee conversation with.
Yeah.
Well, like,
to
they make a
me,
joke
that's-
about it, right? Like
Yeah.
like someone says,
Well,
like, she did this after one fucking date.
because that's where the movie gets weird too, because
yeah,
they're at that point expecting us to like side with the blonde, who, even though she was tortured, seems like a god awful person in general, and like, and she's not even a main character, and so, but suddenly she becomes very key to the story, and you're just like, I don't. It's so bizarre how she comes back. At the
Yeah.
end.
And not only was she proved to actually be like a terrible human being from all the bullying and shit, but they're rescuing her from being kidnapped, and she's still treating them like shit. She's that bad.
No, I mean, to put it in like genre terms a little bit, because like, and Eric, you just made me think of it this way. Like, there's no, so Lucy Hale to me was the main character for a little while. At least like we were like sort of led to believe she was going to be the central character. But ultimately, there's no person that we're hanging our hat on. I guess it's like Maggie Q, because they do try to
That's
inject,
what I thought. Like, I thought she was supposed to be the
Well,
main character.
but they inject this like Sloane character, the blonde, the bully character. So basically, I mean, whatever. The biggest spoiler: only 2, maybe 3 people, depending on how you want to think about it, get off the island alive, and it's Maggie Q and then the bully. But the Maggie Q character is like the least interesting character of all of them, and then otherwise, you essentially have to like be happy with the fact that this woman who is like pretty terrible to a bunch of people, whatever, like. She wants to reform. That's like her fantasy. There's like a whole convoluted thing where they try to like make her more redeemable. I don't know, but that they're the ones that you're like ultimate, like from a genre standpoint, like you don't have a hero. There's no final girl here. There's no person that you're like, oh yeah, like this is who we're throwing our lot in.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, Maggie Q's
Jimmy Yang and what's his name, Rourke.
Maggie Q's probably the closest to that, but like she started the fire, spoiler alert. But also, like, it was an accident. It wasn't like she was doing something really reckless, you know?
Well, and
She
her
knew what she
fantasy
did.
thing was so fucking ridiculous. Like this whole again.
Also,
this is
wait
like
a second,
little bit of
hold
like
on.
a parenting
Would that,
angle, but
I
it's
don't
like,
even, so they say that she started the fire by leaving a burner on, but would that even start a fire? She had tea on it. It's not like there.
It could.
I mean, it would start a fire if you like threw a towel.
That's
on
what
her.
I'm
Like,
saying.
No, I'm with Eric. Like that did not make
Things happen.
She said that she was making tea and then forgot about the tea, and that caused a fire.
Like, tell me she got drunk because she was mad about, like, you know what I mean? There needed a little more, because, like, I'm not judging her. I'm like, it was an accident, dude. I don't know. Like, also, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. No.
And how
Listen,
how
and
would
the number
Lucy
of people
Hale
that
how would Lucy Hale have possibly put together all of these people's connections to this fire? It doesn't make any
that's
sense.
what I was gonna say. If you're Lucy Hale and you want to punish everyone that was involved in this guy's death, why
She's
would
a
these
friggin'
4
genius.
people- yeah, like what? Like the newspaper reported, and here are the 4 people that were responsible for the
Yeah,
death.
there's no way.
Yeah.
There's absolutely, because she didn't know who they were. There's no way she could have
There
put
was
all
a
this together.
Cop that stood outside and was like keeping people out, but wouldn't go into the fire. Like what the? Fuck?
It feels to me like a movie
Yeah.
where it feels to me like a movie that was like rewritten on set a bunch, and at some point they just totally lost the continuity of what they were doing. It's the
Oh, yeah,
only it's the
and-
only way you could like write off some of these discrepancies, like the fact that why does Lucy Hale even have that first fantasy?
Well, it also suffers too, though, that you obviously have a couple filmmakers that are probably close to like Joe and I's age, closer to Joe's, who watched this as a kid and vaguely remember it. And so as they're rewriting on the set, they're going, "Oh, you remember when they used to do this on the show?
I
Let's do
wonder,
that."
like, was that a thing where you'd be in someone else's fantasy and not realize it?
They've done it before.
I don't remember. I honestly, I don't remember much of the show. I remember enjoying it. I
I
remember it looked
definitely,
really nice.
I definitely used to watch it in like syndication, like on
Yeah.
weekdays in the 90s.
Yeah.
So
And I do
Jeff
remember
Wadlow
Rourke.
is 44, so he's 76. Like he was like an infant when this show was on TV. Like
Didn't it
I
go?
was
It went
born in
into the
74.
80s.
He's only 2 years younger than I am.
It
I
went in-
remember it pretty well.
It went into the
Yeah.
80s, right?
Yeah.
84, I think it went off there.
Casey, you were born in 1972?
74.
Oh, still.
I'm
God.
78.
You're 70 years old?
Yeah.
Feels like it some days.
Heyo. And then the final little weird twist with the brother. This part cracked me up. Like the Asian brother, like, this is after everything's gone. This is like the denouement, right? Like the Asian brother sacrifices himself so that his other brother who's been killed can come back to life. And then there's this hilarious scene where the other brother just pops his head out from the plane seat, like, "Hey guys," like, not a, "Oh, you can't do this. Like, you're younger than me. You should go back." Like, he's like, "Sweet, peace out, bitches." Like, he doesn't even
He
say
kind
good.
of dicks him over. and
He
he's,
doesn't
like,
even get off the
perfectly fine with
plane.
it.
He doesn't even
Well,
get off
I
the
don't
plane
think
to
it was
like
like a-
say goodbye to his brother.
But it wasn't like a conversation between the brothers. It was like, the Jimmy Yang character was kind of like, all right, I'm staying, and then you're
Shouldn't-
gonna let him go.
Shouldn't he at least look out the window and be like, "Bye"?
Well, he did. Like,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
hung out
thank-
and said goodbye.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something.
he did like give him a wave.
I mean, the
but
only thing I could think of was like at one point they set it up at that like Jimmy Yang's character was like sleeping on the couch or something. Like it didn't seem like he had like much going on back home.
I mean, still,
Yeah.
like,
But like still,
I don't know.
well,
It
there's
felt
and
that
the-
felt
the other
really
thing that-
weird. That whole angle.
You couldn't
other
have
thing that-
Tattoo be a white person, Eric. Come on.
The other thing that really baffled me is like we get the whole kind of info dump on Michael Pena's character and like everything that happened. At the end, everybody's cool with it. Everyone's like, "Well, you did this to us, but all
Yeah,
right."
It's all
Yeah,
wrapped up.
you're
That's the
sad.
thing.
It's
It's
a
all
1-star review on Yo.
it's all wrapped up
The one guy
incredibly.
jumped on a grenade. He's actually dead.
It's all wrapped up like incredibly cleanly. And Rourke, who his whole life is this whole thing, is now ended, right? Like, so you mean to tell me all the other fantasies, like nothing has ever like made him see the light, right? But this just like thing does, and then he's just totally cool with it. Like it just he's like, okay, it's fine, I'll let it go.
Well,
and then the ring disappears, and it's like over.
No, that's you raise another good point, which is like, how fucking long have they been doing this with this
Right.
island? Because
This could have been the first one, Jim.
It seems like every
No, no,
scenario.
but
It seems
he-
like every scenario would have a high probability of spinning out of control the way this one does.
yes, obviously. I mean,
I think you guys are looking too much into this.
Yeah, that was
Masterful.
that. The fact
Listen.
that these things would spiral out of control and get away from them and stuff with their fantasies is not that different from the TV show. They always got in there deeper than what they thought they were. So that's
Well,
some
no,
of it.
yeah,
fits.
of course, but just like I don't know, it's not. There's something weird about this thing. This has now changed this guy Rourke his entire life, and like he's just kind of like he just gives up at some point. He's like, okay, that's fine, I'll let go.
So I've
Yeah.
got your top 10 list up, Eric. Do you
No,
want to just go
no.
through this now? or-
Absolutely not.
I mean, I keep sitting here making excuses for him as you ask questions, but in all 100% honesty, the whole thing that makes me want to watch Fantasy Island 2 is the ending when we find out that Jimmy Yang's going to be tattooed.
100%. Like I,
That's all it
I
took.
was baffled and confused by this whole thing, but like those last 30 seconds, I'm like, absolutely, I'm
Yeah.
on board.
Well,
for
so
it.
here's
Well,
the thing is
and
that
if
like
they went funny with it, I agree with you. I will
That's
just
yeah,
say.
I'll agree with like if they
Yeah.
had.
I
gone-
mean-
like, because it's kind of half goofy, half serious, and if they had just gone more goofy,
it,
like
it should
I
have
would have
just
loved this.
it should have just been a comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make a movie that those two dudes are in, make that the whole movie, and then like make it like maybe a drama, like a little bit of drama in with a comedy, and you're golden.
Even like
Well-
I feel like at a certain point they were trying to go for like a cabin in the woods type scenario, but like
Yeah.
it just wasn't done well enough, right?
They
like,
hu-
and if they had done
No.
that kind of tongue in cheek, like I would have been on board with this, but
Well, I think they hung too many expectations on Maggie Q's
ugh.
fantasy, which ended up being dry and just not exciting and too emotional. Whereas the fun, goofy shit that was happening with Lucy Hale and the brothers was where the actual entertainment was.
The thing
So-
Eric, what do you think Maggie Q's fantasy is, Eric? If you were gonna guess,
Oh, I don't know. We did see her in that other movie I mentioned. She was in Priest. We have actually
Yeah.
reviewed another movie.
yeah.
Of her. She is
Years ago.
She is
Yeah, it's
very,
been a while.
very, very pretty lady. We. I forgot what I was going to
Yeah.
say. I lost you.
It's
You
like
distracted
dumbfounded by
me.
Maggie
You
Q.
distracted me with Maggie Q, Joe. Oh no! What I was going to say was that like, I had to discuss how bad the screenwriting is. I had to get it out, but I think this movie is actually could be fun in like a riff tracks way with like some friends and some beers. Like I really think this would make a good spooktacular because it's that
Yeah.
stupid.
It doesn't look terrible. It looks pretty good.
No,
and
it's-
some of the shit
Yeah.
they're doing in the fantasies, they
execute pretty well.
It's pretty.
It is
It's
confidently
dumb.
made.
It's-
You're right.
It's
That's-
pretty.
You know I
it's-
love Island Life, John.
Yeah,
Like, that's my
exactly.
thing.
It's dumb. It's goofy. You know, it's like it's kind of
Just
whatever.
want to kick back with a Marg and some Huey Lewis.
Marg.
Yeah. Little Jimmy Buffett, little Huey Lou.
Joe needs an excuse to bust into his Tommy Bahama closet.
There you go.
That's true.
Those shirts are so expensive. Every time I see them, I look at them. They're like fucking $70 for a
I
goddamn
know
shirt.
it's ridiculous.
When I was leaving Florida, moving away, the people I work with gave me a Tommy Bahama shirt as a going away present. I'm like, yes, thank you. This is going to be very helpful when I move back to New York in October. And so I returned it and I got something else.
Oh man.
I'm
If it
not.
wasn't like a child's extra small, like I would have taken that off your hands.
That's more your thing, Joe. You know, we're all different
Oh.
strokes.
I'm on island time, baby. I love it.
All right, guys. Fantasy Island. It's go time. Would you recommend this?
Just everyone's shout out.
Just
one.
all speak at once.
Joe.
Yay!
Sorry, Joe.
Yeah, I would go. Yes, absolutely.
John.
No.
Casey.
I'd say yes.
I would say with like-minded friends and beers, but that's about it.
If you like
Legal
being
marijuana.
Irie,
Yeah.
if you like everything Irie, I feel like this is the one for you, man.
High as a kite, you might say. All right, guys. That's going to do it. Let's do some fan mail.
Nasty weather got you little monsters uptight. Make it a blockbuster night. Blockbuster has something for everyone. Even the fussiest little beasts settle down to enjoy Blockbuster. I just love a family night. If the weather's a fright, make it a Blockbuster night.
Hey, I'm Lisa Zane from Nightmare on Elm Street, and you are listening to Bloody Good Horror.
Send feedback to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or on Twitter using hashtag AskBGH. Join Patreon to get back episodes and much more. Patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror.
And we're back. Mr. Joe,
What's up, brother?
we had a heartwarming event this weekend.
Yeah, we did the BGH 5K, the social distancing 5K this past weekend. Not, kind of our usual October one, which we will be doing, but really just a way for folks to get out there and post up some pictures and get involved in our beautiful community here. And we had a pretty decent turnout. I was a little nervous about how much participation we would get because we weren't doing medals or anything, but yeah, we had a lot of folks on Slack, a lot of Instagram, and a few Facebooks, and we decided to give away a couple 6-packs to folks randomly. A couple of our listeners got those, like, really good. Like it was a lot of fun. I'm glad we got out there. John retained his title.
Wait, don't you mean Eric?
Yeah. Surprise? No, but John.
I was
think,
nervous, Joe. I was nervous. But
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We'll see come October when we get like the full amount of folks out there. But yeah, solid time from John.
Like a gazelle.
I mean, I ran 5 miles. John ran 3, but
You know what? It's funny. I ran 6 the day after because your taunting got me really worked up. And
Wow,
of course
John.
you did.
Gets
Of
to
course you
that.
did, John.
Joe's renting out space in your head. Is that what you're saying?
no, I do have to work myself. I gotta get.
You know what's funny is I assumed you would do 5, John. So I took a screenshot of my 5-mile marker, and like I had this whole thing playing out in my head where like on Slack I would say like, oh, you only did 3.1, John. Like I did 5, and then you would post a picture of your 5, and I'd be like, oh, actually I did 5.1, John. And then like I had a picture of that. Like I ran like an extra 0.1 just to shove it in your face if you did that.
Yeah, it was really cool. I don't know how the turnout was, but I know, like, as per usual, Friday night we already had some people, and other time zones saying, hey, we're doing it. Lots of feedback, lots of people who've never done it before, lots of walkers. That's what I always love to see, like people who wouldn't normally do something like this, but just we did it because, everybody needs something to kind of focus on and just an activity to do right now, obviously. And it was a lot of fun. It's always like very heartwarming. So, and for being the first one that we've done not during spooky season, it seemed like it was pretty successful.
Although I didn't realize Disney over the weekend was doing their halfway to Halloween, which seems like a missed opportunity.
That's probably what we should have called it. Yeah, no, I actually did think that. It's true. Yeah, that was very nice. We also had a really great turnout this last Friday of patrons for the last drive-in. Like just last week, we had I think like 3 or 4 new patrons. A bunch of people sign up for the last drive-in channel. We all watched Brain Dead, which was the first movie, and a bunch of people had never seen it. I think including Casey, right? You'd never seen Brain Dead?
Trauma's War, right? That was the last.
Oh, that was 2 weeks ago. Was Brain Dead? That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Trauma's War, which was a gem. I don't know if you ever seen that. Oh, Joe, you weren't there.
I wasn't, but I actually watched the stream the next day. That is, I don't think I've ever seen that all the way through.
It's wild. Yeah, no, but a lot of first timers for that one too. So that was cool.
Yeah.
And it's been our numbers on Slack for the last drive and every week have been increasing, and it's been really fun. So if you want to get in on that, patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. So there you go. Joe, how much did you spend on turnips this week?
Jesus Christ, buddy. I am
Deep.
I'm in a bad way. I've got I don't know how much I actually spent, but I went full in. To the point
same.
like I started using one of those tracking sites to tell me like what, because like last week what we sold ours
Tuesday.
Aussie Andy, one of our listeners on Slack, like we ended up selling them for like 500 each, and
Yeah.
I'm like, well, obviously like sometime next week I'm gonna get a 500 too, so like I'm fucking going balls out and buying as many as I can. Not gonna happen according to like some of these tracking sites. Like I'll double my profits maybe, but like the problem is I have like double the amount of turnips you can carry at one time. So like if I did sell them on someone else's island, I would have to make like at least 2 trips. So it's a little bit of a disaster.
I'm a little nervous, but it's only Tuesday. We'll get there. All right, info@bloodygoodhorror.com. First up, Kyle. Hey guys, I was looking for a new Nintendo Switch game to help pass some of the time. I had Overcooked on my radar, and after Schnar said how fun it was to play with his kids, I figured it would be a simple enough game to convince my wife to play with me. I took the plunge and ordered a copy. The game arrived this afternoon, and I anxiously waited all day until my wife and I had some baby-free time to play together. Well, the night ended with me yelling at her and crying. Nice recommendation, asshole. How about sticking to your word of the day duties and staying away from video game recommendations? Thanks, Kyle.
I mean,
P.S. P.S. Just kidding, Schnars. The game is a blast. Thanks for everything you guys do.
Is that why CC isn't here tonight? Is that...
Yeah, it's possible. Honestly, I thought that could have been a realistic email. Look, I love Overcooked, but it will make you. It will test your bonds with your loved ones. So.
Have you guys played that like Sonic and Mario Olympics or something? I saw a commercial for it.
Sure have. We
Is it
own
fun? It looks
It's-
like it'd be.
It's okay. If you're gonna go that direction, I would very strongly recommend Mario Party, which like I would recommend anyway.
They're just like
but in
mini
the
games.
Yeah, in the mini game category, I think the Mario Party game's better, but it's a good. I like the Sonic and Mario thing.
But is Mario Party? Is it like sports stuff? Like I don't really
no.
like fucking grab ass or whatever.
No. It's like all kinds of random ass mini games.
What?
Some of them are sports related, but some of them aren't.
What?
Yeah, I don't know what Joe's getting at, but no. But, so like the Mario Sonic Olympics, they've been making that game for years,
Yeah.
and it's basically like there's all the Olympic events.
They
and then
do
you
it
mini games
every.
around.
They do it every 4 years.
Yeah. Well, they do winter one too, I think. But in any event, Mario Party mini games, excellent. That's my take home message.
All right, we'll look into it.
Caitlin from Kissimmee. On Prime, there's an anthology series, I would guess you could say that's what it is, called Oats Studio Volume 1. I think it said the guy who did District 9 had a lot to do with it. That would be Mr. Blomkamp. It's incredible. CGI visuals and concept, I think, set a new bar. Hopefully would make a great watch for the show. Thanks, Caitlin Kissimmee. That's it for this week. We also have a Professor Plumpkin email that I am too buzzed to read, so we're gonna do it next week. So here we are.
I was going to throw in there real quick on that last email. I have not watched those Oates Volume 1 videos yet, but a friend from mine from work, who's also a horror fan, pointed them out to me yesterday. They're on Amazon Prime, and from what I've seen of the previews, they look fantastic. So
What is
I'm
it?
definitely excited. They're just a couple of shorts that are running about 20 to 30 minutes
Like-
from what I've seen. The first one I saw the preview for was Zygote.
Like horror?
Yeah, their horror kind of Zygote is kind of alien-y. Other than that, I haven't watched them yet. So
Is it like
they're pretty
it's spelled?
impressive.
It's Oates, like
Oates?
the word.
Yeah, that's
I've watched Hall's. I've watched his short
yeah.
films.
That's
I've
my
not watched any of
confusion.
Oates.
That's
Well,
my
you need to
confusion.
look for the one with the mustache icon.
It just seems like a weird title. That's all. It's weird.
Yeah, it is.
Oh yeah. All right, I found it. I'm into it.
It's
Alright,
on my
good.
list for this.
Confirmed. John's into it.
I'm done.
It is It's Blomkamp. Eric was right. Good call, Eric.
Well,
Good
that's the
Blumhouse.
District 9 guy.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
is.
We want to
Blumpkin.
do some tweets? We want to fucking wrap up with these tweets?
Yes, please.
We only got a few. We are on Twitter at BG Horror. We use the hashtag AskBGH every week. If you want to send in a question, let us solve your problems. First up from, here he is, Hoagie Lover. COW Flanagan. Yo, I'm a little confused as to how drinking on a mostly obscure horror host that's pushing 70 is daring and brave.
Oh.
Film Twitter.
I believe he's saying dunking.
Yeah, dunking, and we're not going to address it.
I don't know what the hell this is about. Anyway, next up, two from Cody Yolo. Just watched Dead Water 2019 with Casper Van Dien. It is hilariously bad. Give it a watch, and at least the last 20 minutes, sponsored by the USVI Department of Tourism. Oh, and then he follows up. Also, is it just me, or does Casper Van Dien's face look like a big henchman from The Rocketeer?
Yeah,
Who knew he was still alive?
I did. I got a good Casper Van Dien story. It's not that good, but I was at Indie PopCon a few years ago with my daughter, and he was there as a guest signing autographs. And as we were walking through to get in the line for Markiplier, which we spent the entire convention, we walked past Casper Van Dien's table, and he was hanging out. Nobody in line, so I figured, hey. I walked up and said hi to him, shook his hand, said, hey, I'm a big fan. I really love Starship Troopers and stuff. And he said, but picture? And I'm like, no, I'm good. Thanks. And it's
Aw,
like,
Casey.
fine.
John, best guess. Who do you think Markiplier is?
I have legit no idea.
He's a YouTube guy.
Yes, he is.
He's big with the
Thank
kids.
God.
He's an OG YouTuber.
I was gonna say that Judd Nelson is also in this film with Casper Van Dien, so if we do want to check it out, we can get Judd
Quality.
Nelson. Yeah.
I saw like randomly on cable like years ago, but not that long ago, like a weird B thriller with Judd Nelson and the guy from Devon Sawa. Like
Oh,
they
wow.
were like grizzled like investigator cops, but it was clearly like some really bootleg B movie kind of thing. There you go.
Okay.
Next up from our good friend Nylon Avenger. I'm a pillow fluffer. My husband is not. He mocks my nightly ritual by pretend fluffing the bed, our pets, sometimes my head. His pillow looks like a slab of cement. What kind of monster sleeps like that? P.S. Inquiring about pillow, not porn fluffing. Full or
So
flat?
I sleep on my back. We've covered this a lot lately for some reason, but I sleep on my back, and I recently converted to a memory foam pillow. I'll never go back. It's incredible.
Yeah, so that's where I was going to go with this as well. I had converted to the memory foam. I've actually been back now sleeping on a non-memory foam. I'm supportive of the fluffing, but I don't want to have to do it if I don't have to.
Yeah,
That's sort of
memory
where I'm at
foam.
on it.
Memory foam. Memory foam is pre-fluffed.
Memory
It's-
foam
it-
is where it's at.
Yeah, my problem with the memory foam, I sleep on my stomach, and it.
Oh,
I
you
don't know,
can't.
if
That
you
doesn't
move
work
around
for
a
that,
lot-
John.
Yeah,
What?
it's not great.
No, you need. So IKEA, John, makes stomach sleeping pillows that are really thin, so that your neck isn't like bent backwards.
Sure,
You're gonna
but I
die, John.
Yeah, don't die on me, John.
Yeah. All right,
I need
I'll,
this.
I'll do what I can.
No, but
I
the
sleep on my stomach. A CPAP takes care of all your problems.
Casey,
my
you sleep
side
on your
like a normal human being.
Casey,
Fucking weirdos.
Casey, you sleep on your stomach with a CPAP?
Yeah.
Just be careful, all right, buddy? That sounds not right.
Oh, I've done it for decades. I've
right.
always slept on my stomach with the CPAP, and it's great because I can get burrowed in completely under the blankets and everything up over my head. Still breathe fine. It's not hot.
forcing the
No.
oxygen into his,
Yeah.
you know.
Anyway,
What's going on in your
So-
help what
houses?
breathe.
I was a stomach sleep my whole life until I developed reflux and I had to start sleeping on my back. But the memory foam is great because I just can prop myself up, kind of settle in, and then you kind of like, it goes, and then I wake up 8 hours later. Like that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I've been trying to switch to sleeping on my back, but the entire time I'll do the almost asleep, fairly asleep, then jump awake. Oh God, what happened?
My biggest
The entire-
problem lately, and this is actually kind of scary, is that I sleep so soundly, but I still kind of move around a little bit. So I'll get in weird positions and then not move for 4 hours and wake up with everything asleep. Like, so I do this thing sometimes in my sleep where I'm on my back and I'll put both arms like up here, kind of behind my head, and then I'll sleep like that for hours. And then I wake up and my whole arm down to my shoulder and the back of my head is asleep, which is really alarming.
The three of you are disgusting human beings. I'm gonna say that. I sleep on my side like not a fucking animal, and that's it.
I
Yeah,
can't.
I
I
don't-
can't. I've never been a side
Once
sleeper.
you've had shoulder surgeries
Yeah.
and you're forced to like think about this a lot, like it's all throw caution to the wind. I just sleep however I can get myself to fucking sleep any day of the week. So
You know what's funny? I never
You're fucking boohooing. All right.
I never in a million years thought that I could sleep on my back, and then I started doing it, and I'm probably sleeping better now than I have in years because what started happening in my stomach was that even on the memory foam mattress, my back would hurt because you kind of like your center of gravity kind of weighs you down.
You know what I
understand,
love?
Like,
Napping.
you guys
Do
are
you guys
talking
do-
like the side is not an option.
I now with
do
my
you guys
stomach.
does anybody do the power napping? When I say power napping, I mean anything less than 30 minutes.
My naps are 2 hours or they're
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
See, I'll lay
What's the
down and
use?
I'll set an alarm for 25 minutes.
No, it doesn't
and
work.
I only sleep on my back, and I'll get it's great.
I
I
just-
actually love
I
it.
don't know what
no.
world you're living in where you set an alarm for 25 minutes and you don't just sit there terrified for 25 minutes that alarm's
Yeah.
gonna go off.
Yeah, no, it just ruins the whole experience, frankly.
Like what?
we-
Like,
We're gonna have a follow-on conversation about this. Well, I'll
I
take
gotta
it.
go at least 45.
yeah.
No, I need at least an hour, preferably 2.
Yeah. Like I can't set an alarm for anything.
Which
like,
means
I
as
set
a
my alarm for like work, but I usually wake up early anyway. And like if I wake up, I think my alarm's usually set for 6, like on a day where I'm not going out for a run. If I wake up at 3, I'm like, ugh, I only got 3 hours left. I guess I'm up now.
Yeah. No, I get it, but it's you gotta work on it.
What charmed life are you living where like you aren't immediately stressed the moment an alarm is set?
Yeah. I
It's
do a lot of
Uh,
waking up like 90 seconds before the alarm goes off and not thinking I have time,
Yeah.
That sucks.
I'm up. Yeah. I'm like a 5 a.m. riser. I love it. All right. Last but not least, from Hey Arnold. Am I the only one who thought Post Malone was the Babadook when they first saw him?
He's a little unsettling looking for sure. Do you know what this guy looks like, John?
I'm googling him right now. No. Okay. Yeah, I get it.
Here's the thing, like that bothers me about Post Malone. When I first saw him, I didn't know his music, and I'm like, "Oh, this guy must be some like fucking badass rapper." Like, talking
Yeah,
about, like murdering people.
you assume
And then
he
I heard his music. I'm like, "What the fuck is this shit?"
you assume
That
he's
was my
some
reaction.
you assume that he's some like garbage like modern trap mumble rapper kind of guy.
Yeah.
And then you listen to it and it's actually like it's like R&B and it's like really well produced and like heartfelt and you just look at him and you're like it doesn't compute.
Yeah, I'm upset about the fact that like people with face tattoos now are not like badasses.
Ostracized.
Like, it's
Oh.
no, it's like you have fucking face tattoos. You're supposed to be like fucking hardcore, not
Oh,
singing this
you just-
bullshit.
Oh, see, I just think that it's just stupid.
Like I think if that's your thing, like more power to you. But like the music. Like,
No,
if you like
I'm-
it, like that's I'm
oh.
all for
No,
it.
I actually like his music. I
have
think it's
no
actually pretty good.
opinions about his music at all. but I'm gonna come out as against face tattoos.
Yes,
That's just
yeah,
like I'm gonna put that on the
100%.
table.
That's pretty safe.
Obviously, like you need to have been in prison. You need to have murdered people. Like that's the stance you're taking.
I would actually even say like I'm okay with like a small face tattoo. His are all over his goddamn face. I actually had never seen a picture of this person until I just looked at it.
What's that? You know, you might like
it
then,
looks
Joe.
like a 3-year-old took a fucking Etch-a-Sketch to
Joe,
his face.
Joe, you know, you might like. There's another like trashy white rapper dude that has tattoos all over his face, and his name is escaping me right now. I'm gonna look it up.
I
Is
bet
it
I don't
Machine
like
Gun
it.
Kelly?
He does have face tattoos, but that's not who I'm talking about.
Yeah, fuck that guy too. Pretty much. I don't know. Like it angers me when I see these people. Like even rappers now, like they're not fucking mean. Like I'm not scared of them. I'm not scared of Chance the Rapper.
Oh, he's
He's not trying
Do
to
you,
be
do you
scary.
want to be afraid of the people?
Yes, like I miss like the '90s where I'm
Yeah.
like legitimately scared that like Tupac's gonna shoot me in the face. Like that's fucking rap. That's not.
Tupac was never gonna shoot anyone in the face, just to be clear. But...
John, you ever heard "Hit 'Em Up"?
Hard disagree, John.
I don't know.
Oh boy.
Okay.
That's it for tweets.
Great. I have no response. Oh, I don't know what we're doing next week, but we're here. I know we're not going anywhere. Oh, there's a small chance we might take a week off, but we haven't decided yet. We'll let you know.
Well, and we would come out with a classic.
We'll do a class.
banger.
If we do take a week off, we'll do a classic, which really isn't a week off for me because then I still have to edit and post it. So
Which we like.
Yeah.
We like that you're on your
Yeah.
toes.
in some ways,
It's a week off for me though.
in some ways, it's more work for me.
Yeah, stop it.
We love your.
All right. Yeah. Another quarantined edition of Bloody Good Horror. See if we make it through this, John. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you next week.
See you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.